Our Denver Broncos have won 5 games in a row, and today we are looking to keep the streak going as we face off against Mayonnaise Man himself, Will Levis, and the Tennessee Titans, who have not had a great season this year. They're currently 3-9, but we don't want to take them lightly. This potentially screams trap game. We've also got another prospect profile. Today we're going to go over the big boys up front, the hog mollies, the offensive and defensive linemen in this year's draft class. But real quick, to assess where the team is, we are currently 7-5. We obviously opened up the season 2-0, and then we had our long losing streak, losing 5 straight. But since then, we've won 5 in a row, scoring at least 20 points in all 5 games. That doesn't necessarily mean the offense is fixed, though. There's still a lot of issues on that side of the ball, particularly in the passing game, that we've got to get sorted. And that includes bolstering the offensive line. The guys we have up front right now are not quite going to cut it. Now, as you all know, we have the Jets pick from our draft day deal with them last year. And, well, the Jets are not very good. They are 1-11. They've lost 8 in a row. And that is currently projected as the number 1 pick in this year's draft. And as this season goes along and the Jets continue to lose, there's going to be more separation between the Jets and the other teams at the bottom. The Browns are the only other team with 2 wins. So even if the Jets were to win again at some point, that pick would still be projected number 1. So we have a little bit of a cushion with it going into these last 5 games. Last year, the offensive line class was quite poor. So I'm very pleased to say that this year, that's not the case. We're looking at a really strong offensive line class, which is nice because Lord knows we could use some help. Of course, we're a little bit banged up currently with Quinn Miners hurt, but otherwise, our big money offensive linemen have not lived up to the billing. Miners hasn't lived up to his contract. Ben Powers got benched. Mike McGlinchey got benched. Look at Bo Nix. He's towards the top of the league in sacks taken, and that doesn't account for all the sacks that he's had to throw out of this year or passes that he's thrown away. I'd imagine he's at the top of the league in that category. We do with the best rushing team in the NFL, but I think much of that is because of volume more than the guys up front, and it doesn't help that our offensive line is older as well. All of our regular starters are not on their rookie contracts, so it's not a great group, and it's not a particularly young group. That means we could look to get younger, and I think it's fair to say that we're certainly going to consider using one or both of our first-round picks on offensive linemen. We'll start with Jalen Rivers out of the University of Miami. He's an older prospect at 24 years old, but he's had a phenomenal season with the Canes. He's really broken out this season. Not a guy who had a lot of first-round buzz or really draft buzz at all coming into the year, but he now finds himself as the top projected tackle in this class, which says a lot because there's currently 5 projected to go in the first round and 3 slated to go in the top 10. What Rivers has done as a pass protector for Miami this year has been really impressive. This is going to be somebody who you can put as your left tackle as a traditional blindside blocker, and he will make your quarterback's life a lot easier. He's only let up 1 sack so far this year. There's also Tristan Lee from Clemson, who I think is a little bit more inconsistent, especially in the passing game. But he's a dynamic athlete, former 5-star recruit. He's got the pedigree there. I think he's a better run blocker than Rivers is, and I think with his overall athleticism, the ceiling is probably a little bit higher, but the consistency hasn't quite been there, at least compared to the other top tackles in this class. But as we look at his build, 6'6", 315, long arms, again, moves well laterally in space, and is overall a very productive player, that screams first rounder. Emory Jones Jr. from LSU is next up, a guy with experience on the right and the left side of the offensive line. Another guy who comes in with the prototypical size and traits. 6'6", 322 pounds. He's gotten better each and every season as a starter with the Tigers, and now positions himself as a top 10 pick in this year's draft. He's got a great anchor in the run game, really strong in the passing game as well. I think with his experience and his ability in the run game and as a pass blocker, he really checks off all the boxes, and it's hard to make arguments against him going in the top 10. Now, I don't think his pass protection this year has been at the level of Jalen Rivers. That's why Rivers is projected a little bit ahead of him. But otherwise, I think Emory Jones is probably a little bit more well-rounded as a prospect. Micah Pettis from Ole Miss is a fun player. He is a large human being, 6'7", 360. He's a big boy. Another guy who was not a high-level recruit, much like Jalen Rivers. Did not get the big NFL draft buzz coming into the year, but he's played like the part of the first rounder. Obviously, his size is the first thing you'll notice, but he moves at a pretty impressive rate given how big he is, and that goes along with obviously being a mauler in the run game and a really, really strong pass protector. He's only let up 3 sacks over the last 2 seasons as the starting right tackle for the Rebels, and I think that body of work suggests that he belongs as a top half of the first-round selection. And then we've got Jonah Savai-Inaya out of the University of Arizona. He's been on NFL Scouts' radars for a while, and I think he's earned the opportunity to be a first-round pick. Really, really good pass protector. I think he's a little bit inconsistent in the run game, though. I think that's why he's below some of these other top tackles, but still belongs in the first round. I just want to see him improve a little bit more in the run game, but what he provides as a pass blocker, he's right up there with all the other guys at the top of this class, and for a team like us, who will be prioritizing pass protection, I think somebody like him could be a good fit. As we look down the board, Andrew Gentry from Michigan has really broken out this season. Emil Wagner from Notre Dame has developed into a good player. But I want to look at Francis Mauigoa out of the University of Miami because he's a really fascinating player, currently projected to go in the 3rd round. This is a former 5-star recruit who's turned out to be a pretty solid player at the University of Miami. He has all the athletic traits you look for in a high-level recruit and eventually a high-level pro prospect. The consistency, though, especially as a pass blocker, really has not been there whatsoever. That's got to improve, and I think he's a ways away from being a good NFL starter, but he's got the tools to be a really good player, so it's a little bit of a gamble with Mauigoa in the 3rd round, but one that could be worth it. Behind him, Blake Miller from Clemson, very solid player, and then you've got the day 3 guys, and then at left tackle, Will Jados from Miami of Ohio, Logan Brown out of Kansas. He's been a solid player over the last 2 seasons for the Jayhawks. Fringe top 100 pick. As we look at the interior, really good offensive guard class, and that starts with Jaden Roberts out of the University of Alabama. He is as good of an offensive guard prospect as you will find. This is somebody who's a mauler in the run game, terrific in pass protection. He has let up 0 sacks over the last 2 seasons and is about as pro-ready of an NFL player at really any position that you'll find. I get the positional value isn't really that high with guard, but if you're looking for somebody who's going to be a Pro Bowler on day 1, Jaden Roberts is your guy. You can make the argument, though, that he's not even the best guard prospect from his own team because Tyler Booker might go before him. Booker has elite size, 6'5", 350. I don't quite think he's on the level that Roberts is, although I don't think he's far behind. This is one of the best offensive linemen and offensive guards in America. He just has a few reps where it's not as pretty in the run game and in pass protection, but given his size, given the athletic traits for the former 5-star recruit, he's probably going to go in the 1st round, and I think the ceiling with him is that of a Quentin Nelson, a Zach Martin, a Hall of Fame guard, and I don't say that lightly. I think the upside with Booker is that high. And then we've got Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia, who's not quite on either of their radars, but again, he's not far behind. Most seasons, he'd be the top offensive guard projected, and he'd probably go in the 1st round. But since we got the 2 guys from Alabama, he's pushed down a little bit, but he's still really good. Very solid pass protector, although similarly to Tyler Booker, there are some ugly reps. Now this year, he's cleaned it up. Hasn't allowed any sacks after letting up 5 a year ago. And then we get to a familiar face, Bryce Foster out of Kansas. And coming into this process, looking at the offensive guards in this class, I figured Foster would be a solid prospect. I did not expect him to be a top 50 pick, but as I look at him, it makes a lot of sense. First of all, this guy is an absolute freak. One of the most impressive athletes, regardless of position in this entire class. The production over the last 2 seasons has been really solid. I get that he's let up 4 sacks this year, but Clyde Poole scrambles around more than just about anybody. Many of those sacks are because of Clyde Poole trying to make a play. Foster also has incredible versatility. He's played center and guard for Kansas over the last 2 seasons. While it's a very top-heavy guard class, I don't think it's very deep. Only one likely top 100 pick other than those guys, that being Inez Cooper out of Miami. And then at center, kind of the opposite. Not top-heavy, but it's deep. Andrew Madrigal from Nevada, Jake Slaughter from Florida, Mason Randolph from Boise State, and Parker Brailsford from Alabama, all projected top 100 picks. As we move to the defensive line, this was a major weakness for us last year, and this season it's turned into a major strength. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to avoid picking defensive linemen. It never hurts to add more pass rushers to the arsenal. Last offseason, we made this position group a focal point for us. We drafted Mykel Williams 8th overall. We signed guys like Dietrich Wise and Chauncey Golston. We traded for Jordan Davis, and now we have the best defensive line probably in the NFL. It's not necessarily these guys who are leading the way, but they've been good complementary pieces for other guys like Nick Bonito. We lead the NFL in sacks, and we also have the best rush defense in the NFL, so that shows how good the guys up front have been. And again, it's mainly been Nick Bonito who has led the way. He has been maybe the best defensive player in the NFL. You got to keep in mind, him and Baron Browning, our two main edge rushers, are listed as linebackers. They play with their hand off of the dirt in our scheme. As we look at some edge rushers today, even though they're listed as a defensive end, that doesn't necessarily mean we would put them there. They can play outside linebacker. We've got a lot of guys who are very scheme versatile. Mykel Williams can play defensive end and outside linebacker. So can Jonathan Cooper. We've got a lot of guys who can move around, and versatility is certainly something we're going to be looking for on the defensive line. Got to keep in mind we've got some expiring contracts. Jordan Davis wants a bag, and given how he's played over the last few weeks, I think he's earned it. Of course, Nick Bonito is here as well. He's not going anywhere. But with him getting a big payday, what does that mean for somebody like Jordan Davis or Jonathan Cooper? Both of whom are on expiring contracts, and both of them have earned a raise. Not everybody's going to be able to stick around. So as we compare this year's defensive line class to last year's, it's definitely not as top-heavy. Last year, the top 10 was dominated by edge rushers, but there was not a lot of depth outside of the top 15 picks. This year is the opposite. There's going to be a lot more guys who go in the top 100, but they're going to be scattered rather than all going at the top. We'll start things off with Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, and he's an interesting case because he was supposed to be in last year's class. He would have been in firm consideration to go 3rd overall to us. Of course, we ended up trading down, and it's worked out very well. But regardless, this is one of the best pass rushers in college football, and a guy who I think is a top 5 talent. Last season, he had the sack numbers to back it up. I think he finished with 15.5. This year, not quite the case. He's only at around 5 here at the end of the regular season. So that poses the question, why is he still projected in the top 5? Well, we can't ignore the body of work over his collegiate career at Purdue and now Texas A&M. Teams are double-teaming him. They're putting their entire offensive game plan around him, and because of that, his numbers are down overall. But teams still recognize the dominance that he imposes, and because of that, he still belongs in the top 5. If you're concerned with the sack numbers, though, then maybe waiting for a guy like Patrick Payton from Florida State could work. That spin move that you just saw, nasty. Payton has seen very linear development over his career with the Seminoles, which is an indicator that he'll likely be a successful NFL player. 6'5", 250, he's got good size and length, wins in a variety of different ways as a pass rusher, and again, consistent improvement over his career. He has an 11-sack season this year, anchoring a Florida State defense who's on its way to the college football playoff. Then we get to Ruben Bain Jr., the underclassman from Miami. Only 21 years old, one of the younger players in this class, and a guy who burst onto the scene as a true freshman. And similarly to Peyton, he's got incrementally better and better and better throughout his career with the Canes. And it doesn't hurt that he's 2 years younger than Peyton as well. So if you're looking for maybe a little bit more long-term upside, I think Ruben Bain could be your guy. Speaking of upside, let's talk about Abdul Carter from Penn State, who's a little bit of a wild card. He is a freak athlete, and when you see the number 11 and when you see the get-off coming off the edge, you think Micah Parsons a little bit. Now, Carter hasn't quite been as productive as Parsons was at Penn State. It's been for a variety of different reasons, whether he was used inconsistently or this year because of a bicep injury. When he's on the field, the flashes are evident, even if he's never become a consistently great pass rusher. Nonetheless, the athletic traits are going to be too much for teams to pass on. He's got one of the highest ceilings of anybody in the draft. C.J. Basil Jr. from Liberty is looked at in a good way for opposite reasons. It's the production that teams really like with Basil. 17 sacks this year, that leads the FBS. but his athletic traits don't pop off the page. He's 6'1", 250. He's not the quickest off the edge. He's not the strongest, but his consistent pass rush production is going to get him drafted probably in the top 50 picks. Now, the question is, how will he be able to jump up from Conference USA to the NFL? Because the athletes he's going to face off against at offensive tackle are different. A lot different. In terms of the depth, as I mentioned, way deeper edge class than a year ago. Some names I want to highlight include Trey Moore out of Texas. Had a really good season last year. Probably could have been a first-rounder if he declared. Decided to return to school. He's been banged up, and when he has been on the field, he's been a little bit disappointing. Nonetheless, I do really like this prospect still, although he is a bit of a one-trick pony. He relies on his quickness and finesse to come off the edge. He needs more of a diverse pass-rushing toolbox, and if he can work on that, then I think the ceiling could be really high. Stephen Daly of NC State transferred in from Kent State a year ago. His sack total went from 7 to 13 jumping into the ACC. You got LT Overton from Alabama. Originally the number one player in the high school class of 2023, reclassified up. So he's been in college for 4 years, 2 with Texas A&M, 2 with Alabama. But he's basically the age of the junior. He's one of the younger players in this class, only 21 years old. And he's really gotten better over his 2 years with the Tide. Really, really good run defender who has really improved as a pass rusher. And the high-end physical traits that teams saw in him when he was looked at as a 5-star prospect a few years ago are finally coming into fruition. Speaking of former 5-star recruits, Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State, another very toolsy guy. Shamar Turner, also another high recruit. And then Anthony Lucas from USC has really broken out. There's our good friend Dylan Brooks, projected in the 7th round out of Kansas. I think he could be a good pro, though. His combination of size, speed, and strength is one of the better ones of anybody in this class. Then at right end, Ethan Burke from Texas. Ty Ingrams-Dawkins, great run defender from Georgia. Corey Foreman from Oregon, total opposite. He's more of a rotational pass rusher, another former top overall recruit in his high school class. As we move to defensive tackle, where we've got to start with Peter Woods, the big fella out of Clemson, who's in the conversation to be the number 1 overall pick. 6'2", 315, Woods was a 5-star recruit who had been pretty good over his first couple seasons with the Tigers, and then this year he has blossomed into a superstar. We got to see him up close and personal when Kansas traveled to Death Valley to face off against the Tigers, and he looked like the real deal. In the most recent mock draft, it had Denver picking Woods number 1 overall. It'd be a little surprising to not see a quarterback go there, whether it would be to Denver or a trade, but that speaks to how good Woods is and the probability of him being the top non-quarterback off the board. As I mentioned, I like the depth here at defensive tackle, but there's really only one other guy who I think is going to go in round 1, and that's Bear Alexander from USC. He's had a rocky collegiate career with multiple stops in the transfer portal, but he's found a home with the Trojans, where over the last 2 seasons, he's finally turned into the player that a lot of people saw with him during his freshman season at the University of Georgia. This is a large human being and somebody who gives off the size and physical tools of somebody who's going to be a really good run defender, but he's really turned into a good pass rusher. 17.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons with the Trojans. There are some character question marks with him, but if he's able to go to a good organization who's going to nurture and develop him, I think we could be looking at a future star. Behind him, some of the names to watch on day 2 include Devin Eastern from Minnesota. He's a good player. Zane Durant from Penn State, a little undersized, but the production is really impressive. Derek Harmon from Oregon. He's been a great player for the Ducks over the last 2 seasons. And then if you're looking for somebody on day 3, Dante Corleone from Cincinnati. Once upon a time, a projected first-round pick who hasn't really lived up to the billing over the last couple of seasons, but I still think there's a lot of upside with him in the 5th or 6th round. So that'll bring us to this matchup against the Titans. And as you can see here, Tennessee doesn't really stack up well anywhere. However, as I look at their schedule, this team really isn't so bad. Of their 12 games so far, 11 have been decided by 1 score. Not to mention they're coming off a bye week, so that certainly helps them as well. This screams trap game because our next 2 matchups are against the number 1 seeded Cowboys and the number 1 seeded Chiefs. It would be really easy for us to look past this game against Tennessee, look at their 3-9 record and say, oh, we don't have to worry about them. But the Titans are a lot better than their record suggests, and I think this team's going to be really good, really quick. They've drafted very well over the last couple of seasons. It's just a matter of getting the quarterback position right, because I don't think Will Levis is going to be the guy here long term. I think they're probably going to get a rookie in this year's draft, and they've given him some good pieces. Elijah Badger, the 4th-round receiver out of Florida, has been a grand slam. Jacob Bayer, the offensive lineman in the 2nd round, superstar development. Will Johnson in round 1, superstar development, although he's hurt. We won't get to see him today. Linebacker Danny Stutzman in the 3rd round last year. The Titans' top 4 picks from last year's draft are all above 80 overall already. So if they can get the quarterback position right, they're going to be really good in a very quick amount of time. So I'm curious to see how some of these young guys look today, because I think this team's going to be a threat within the next couple of years. Should be a fun one here in the Mile High City. Denver looking for their 6th consecutive win. Currently 7-5, positioned as the 7th seed in the AFC. 3rd and 10. Knicks under pressure with a strike up the middle for Marvin Mims, who gets the first down. Mims, coming back from his injury a few weeks ago, has played really well since returning. Knicks under pressure. He is sacked. It's the rookie Danny Stutzman off the blitz. 3rd-round linebacker out of Oklahoma, off to a really good start in his NFL career with the Titans, as it's now a 3rd and 14. Nix looks to throw it up the middle. He's got Mims again. Quick start for Marvin Mims on this opening drive. He's got 3 catches for 37 yards. Him and Nix look to be in sync early. Mims has a pair of 77-yard touchdowns in each of the last 2 weeks as Javonte Williams gets it to the outside, into the red zone to the 18-yard line. So far, so good here on drive number 1 for the Broncos, an offense who usually starts games off pretty slowly. 1st and goal from the 4. A 6-plus minute drive looking to end off in the end zone, and it will. Javonte Williams powering his way through for a touchdown, and the Broncos are off to a good start. They lead 7-0 as we take our first look at the Titans offense. Will Levis and company leading the charge. And as I mentioned, I think the Titans are a team who's probably going to look to draft a quarterback in the 1st round. But I do want to see how Levis looks, as he is sacked on the play. Jonathan Cooper and Mykel Williams bring him down, 2 of the unsung heroes for this elite defensive line, who, as we talked about earlier, statistically has been the best in the NFL. 2nd and 15. Wide open in the flat is Chig Okonkwo, the talented young tight end out of the University of Maryland. He gets it to the 24. That'll wrap up the 1st quarter. Very slow-paced game so far. The Titans still haven't even wrapped up their opening drive. Both offenses are looking pretty good so far in the limited sample size, as that brings us into the 2nd quarter. We'll see if both offenses are going to start moving the ball faster, or if it's going to be a continuous, slower, slug-it-out game with both teams looking to wear down the defenses. From the 24, play action, Levis looks to throw it. Wide open, broken coverage, touchdown, Chig Okonkwo. I don't know why there was no safety back there to begin with. I think that's on Brandon Jones. He's got to be there in coverage, and we're tied at 7. Denver back with it. Knicks on the run with a strike, but it's broken up. He was looking for Josh Reynolds, but Tennessee's able to make the play in the secondary. 3rd and inches now for the Titans. That one is caught for a 1st down and then some. Elijah Badger, the 4th-round rookie out of the University of Florida, looks to be this team's number 1 receiver going into the foreseeable future. Up the middle at the 41. This one is hauled in for another 1st down. It's Chig Okonkwo again. He's had a huge first half. Now 3rd and 3. Handoff to the left side. Tajay Spears with a 1st down and more inside the 10 to the 5, where he's wrapped up by Marvin Grant. Our defense looks like a disaster so far. What is going on here? This is the Titans offense we're talking about. 1st and goal from the 4. Spears loses 3. Brian Asamoah leads the way, and Jeffrey Bassa finishes off the play. 3rd and goal now from the 1. Back to Spears, and he dives in for a score head first. The Titans take the lead with a Tajay Spears touchdown. It's now 14-7, and we'll see if the Denver offense can respond here late in the 1st half with just over 2 to go, as Nix is sacked by Roger McCreary coming off the corner blitz. Even without Will Johnson, this team has plenty of talent at corner with McCreary, L'Jarius Sneed, and Chidobe Awuzie, as that one is hauled in by Tez Johnson. A really nice catch, but he was out of bounds. Darth Kader Kohu with the coverage. Broncos punt it away. Titans back with it. Levis connects with Calvin Ridley. Breaks the tackle inside the 20. Will Levis is 13 of 13 right now. One of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the NFL, has not missed a throw. Well, now he has. Since I last said that, he's thrown an incompletion. Here's incompletion number 2. It goes through the goalpost. So the Denver defense holds in the red zone, and the Titans are going to go for it. There's 15 seconds. They have no timeouts. Why not just take the field goal? They're going to run the ball. Spears gets it. That's great for them, but they've got to get back to the line of scrimmage, and they don't have any timeouts. What a disastrous end of the first half for Tennessee. Horrible clock management by head coach Brian Callahan. I mean, what was that? 14-7 your score. Titans lead, and they do start with the ball in the second half, but they could have been up by 2 scores. I don't know what Callahan was thinking. Let's take a look at a halftime report around the rest of the NFL. We'll start in Las Vegas. No highlights here because there's nothing really to show. It's 6-3. The Raiders have lost 6 in a row. They're in the complete opposite direction that we are. Of course, we just beat them in Sin City in the last episode in a pretty close, high-scoring game. Next up, we're actually going to get some highlights here. In Los Angeles, the Rams facing off against Seattle. LA kind of fighting for their playoff hopes. Of course, Matthew Stafford hurt. The rookie Shedeur Sanders is starting for them, and they trail big early to the Seattle Seahawks, another team who is in need of a quarterback. So for the Seahawk fans out there who are rooting for the tank, I imagine you're not overly pleased. They lead 24-6 over the Rams. And then in Houston earlier today, the Chargers and Texans, 2 teams on losing streaks who we've passed up in the AFC playoff picture. The Texans led this game 21-0 in the first half, but the Chargers storm back and win 28-21. LA now 6-7. This is the game that could rejuvenate their season and rejuvenate their playoff hopes. As for the Texans, it's the opposite. With teams like Denver passing them up, and now the Texans blowing a 3-score lead, it almost feels like their season is over. Let's go into the second half now. Let's see what we've got to do to come back and win this game. The offense had that really nice, really slow, and well-paced opening drive, but since then we haven't gotten much going. We haven't been able to establish the run, and I think Bo Nix has played well, but again, we need to give him more time to throw it. And then defensively, we have to stop Will Levis. He is carving us up right now. This coverage has looked terrible. So the Titans are moving it slowly but surely. Here's a first down for Ridley. He gets it to the 27. Another slower and efficient drive here from Tennessee to start the third. Already halfway through the quarter as Pollard will get the first down despite a big hit by Riley Moss. But again, Tennessee continuing to move the chains. Back in the red zone from the 17-yard line, Levis calls for motion. That looks like it's Tyler Boyd as he will look to throw it. Pump fake, under pressure, fumble! And it's scooped up by Pollard. Marvin Grant, the rookie out of Kansas with his first career sack. It's a loss of 17. Now a 3rd and 32. They might be out of field goal range. Levis goes short. It's caught for a gain of 3 by Pollard, who's chased out of bounds by Marvin Grant. They will bring out the field goal unit. It's a long one from 53 yards. And to think they had it in the red zone just a couple of plays ago. But Riley Patterson will sink it from 53 anyway. And the strip sack by Grant proves to not hurt the Titans that much. They're up 17-7. Really nice throw on the run here on 2nd and 4. Bo Nix connecting with Marvin Mims, who brings it to the 44-yard line. 2nd and 5 now nearing midfield. There's got to be a sense of urgency for this offense who hasn't scored since the first quarter. Play action. Nix scrambling. Runs around in circles. Finds the hole and runs for the first down. Sliding at the 43. What a play by Bo Nix. Following play. Under pressure. Looks to escape again. On the run with a dime for Marvin Mims. What a sequence from Bo Nix. Even though we've only scored 7 points, I've been really impressed with some of the throws that he's made today. 2nd and inches, scrambles again, open rushing room, and he is out of bounds at the 2. He could have tried to dive into the end zone to score before the end of the quarter, but it's not worth the risk. We're going to have an easy chance to punch it in to start the 4th. 17-7, the Titans up by 10, but our offense is knocking on the doorstep. We've got the ball at the 2-yard line, looking to punch it in here in the red zone. 1st and goal. Audric Estime in the backfield. Nix looking short. He's got Estime for the touchdown. And the Broncos are within 3. That's one of the best drives I've seen of Bo Nix's career. The plays he was making as an improviser, under pressure, scrambling around, making throws on the run. He looked like Clyde Poole back there. 3rd and 10, broken up for Spears. I think that was Patrick Surtain who delivered the hit. Grant there as well. Denver back with it. Javonte Williams loses a yard. Quick start for the Tennessee defense as it's now 2nd and 11. That last Titans drive only lasting 30 seconds. Denver getting the ball right back as it's a play action, and Jeffrey Simmons does not bite. The All-Pro is in the backfield for a sack. Only a loss of 3, though, and it's now 3rd and 14. Nixon empty, calls for an audible. Looks to throw it. Nobody's open deep. He's got to dump it off short for Franklin. He gets around 7. Good stop by Tennessee. Harold Landry makes the play. And now the Titans get it back. Still up by a field goal with 7 minutes to go as the RPO is dropped by Badger. And all of a sudden, this Broncos defense, who really struggled early, has been able to lock in here in the second half. Tennessee with only 3 points since the break. 2nd and 9. It's dropped! Troy Franklin had an easy first down right in his mitts. He's got to come down with that one. 3rd and 9. Nix looks to throw it. He goes short for Mims, and he gets around 5. It looks like he ran into one of his own teammates there during his route. The drive should have continued, though. Troy Franklin on 2nd down needed to catch that ball. Titans back with it. 5.5 to go. There's Baron Browning with the tackle. Isn't Baron Browning hurt? Why is he on the field? That's weird. 3rd and 3. Caught for a first down. Calvin Ridley is able to convert. And if Tennessee can be smart with the clock, there's a chance Denver might not get the ball back. 1st and 10 from the 41-yard line now. Levis looks to throw it under pressure on a blitz. He's got Okonkwo, who's wrapped up by Marvin Grant. I think putting the ball in Will Levis's hands here in this stage of the game is a little bit risky, but he's played really well today, so I can't entirely blame them. 2nd and 5 now from the 40. It's going to be a play-action fake. Levis goes short. It's caught, but a big hit there by Brandon Jones, and that'll lead us to a pivotal 3rd down and 5. It's another pass. Looks like a screen, and it's incomplete. Denver reads the play perfectly, and the Titans on 4th and 5 appear to be punting it away with the talented punter Ryan Stonehouse. Can't say I disagree. Try to pin him deep, win the field position battle as the Broncos start at the 19. Bo Nix, if you can hear me, please save us, Bo Nix. Only down by 3. All we need is a field goal to tie. There's Audric Estime with the first down. Good start. We've got time, and we've got our 3 timeouts, so we can afford to take this drive a little bit slow to open it up. From the 30, Nix up the middle with a strike for Mims. That's a really nice catch. The linebacker flying into him, and Marvin Mims took a shot there. He's banged up. Doesn't look like a serious injury, but not having him out there probably for the rest of the game is a big deal because he's our best offensive playmaker. 2 minutes to go. Denver trails by 3, getting somewhat close to field goal range. As on 3rd and 6, they go to the ground. First down run for Javonte. He's out of bounds at the 39. We wanted to catch them off guard a little bit, and it worked. 3rd and 6 at the 35. Nix wide open as Tez Johnson keeps his feet in, and he's in for a score. Tez Johnson with a 35-yard touchdown, and the brotherly connection will put the Broncos ahead with 1:17 to go in the 4th. Bo Nix leads a potential go-ahead drive, and it's now 21-17. The Titans have not scored since halfway through the 3rd. Can Will Levis lead them down the field and try to end our winning streak? He's got the speedster, McCole Hardman, to open things up, gets the first down to the 38, and the Titans are not going to waste time using timeout number 1. Following play looks like a screen under pressure caught by Spears. Runs by Riley Moss. Gets the first down. A big hit, though, by Chris Abrams-Drain to keep him in bounds, forcing Tennessee to flush another timeout. 2nd and 10 from the 50. Under a minute to go with 1 timeout. Wide open is Ridley. He is going to be tackled at around the 34 by Jeffrey Bassa. Titans don't call their last timeout, going no huddle. Levis up the seam. He's got an open man. A big catch by Tyler Boyd. And they're going to use their last timeout with 35 seconds at the 11. Can they punch it in and take the lead on first down? Levis up the middle for Ridley. He gets it to the 2. There's no timeouts, though. They've got to keep going. Look at the clock. They're going to have time for one more play. This is it. Levis under pressure. He's sacked. The defensive player of the year, Nick Bonito, comes up big at the buzzer. The Broncos survive and prevail. 6 in a row for Denver, as they take this one 21-17 with a game-winning sack by who else than Nick Bonito with his biggest one of the year. So Denver goes up to 8-5 with a thrilling game, a really exciting ending. Tennessee completely mismanaged the clock at the end of both halves. If we go back to the first half, if they kick a field goal on fourth down, they could have kicked a field goal here in the fourth to win the game. They used their timeouts way too early in both halves. Even though we only scored 21 points, I was really impressed with Bo Nix. One of his better games of the year. He was accurate. He was really making plays under pressure. One of his strongest games of the season. He's had a few good weeks in a row, starting to build on some good games. I was also impressed with Will Levis. Started the game red hot. Really cooled off, but overall a good performance. Both teams ran the ball pretty well. Chico Conquo and Calvin Ridley were uncoverable for the Titans, while Marvin Mims had another big game and Tez Johnson had the game-winning touchdown. Defensively was not pretty early. Our secondary got gashed to start this game, but over the last 15 minutes did not allow any points. Nick Bonito with the game-winning sack. Marvin Grant was excellent. Also want to shout out Jeffrey Bassa. He had the tackle on Calvin Ridley at the 2-yard line shy of the end zone to set up the sack by Bonito. We do have a couple new injuries. Nick Gargiulo, broken ribs, out for the rest of the regular season. Mike McGlinchey will get his job back at right tackle. And then Zamir White pulled his groin. Our curse at running back continues as we look at some scores around the league. The Jets won. They beat Baltimore, of all teams. Players of the week, Cooper Kupp, Joe Burrow, Zathan Collins, and Micah McFadden. So the Jets are now 2-11. Their 8-game losing streak is done. But as I said earlier, since there aren't many teams as bad as them, there's still breathing room. We still have the number 1 pick right now, but they do have the same record as Cleveland. So that is something to monitor now. We have less margin for error, and we're going to need some Jets losses down the stretch in these last 4 games. As for us, we've got a doubleheader in the next episode, and it's a big one. Number 1 seeded Cowboys, number 1 seeded Chiefs. Let's see if this team's for real. During our 6-game win streak, we haven't played against the best of competition, and now we're facing off against the 2 best teams in the league. Time to see if our Broncos are really a playoff contender, or if we're strength of schedule merchants. That'll wrap up the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out. Broncos country. Let's ride.